You are listening to Box Office Radio. I am Andrew Lynford, and the moment has come, everybody, where we are going to beam live back to the UK and speak to the one and only Mr. Mark Reed. Mark, are you there?
Hey, Andrew, how you doing? It's great to speak to you.
Yeah, and you. Lovely to see you, my friend. How's it going?
Yeah, really good. You know, when you said the one and only, I thought maybe I was in the wrong interview. I thought maybe you were talking about my good friend, Mr. Chesney Hawkes.
Chesney Hawkes, the one and only. Now,
of course.
Buddy, you should bring up Mr. Chesney Hawkes because he lives over here in LA. And in fact, the last time I saw you over here, you were kind of out here to visit him, right?
That's right. Well, I was supposed to, but I didn't in the end. But he often comes back to the UK to do gigs. So we usually catch up when he does come over, and we have a bit of a jam session. We do a couple of shows together. So he's a lovely guy, and we do keep in touch as much as possible. Like all musicians and performers at the moment, it's been a massive adjustment having all of our gigs and cancelled. So like A1, Chesney was doing a lot of online virtual shows. I don't know if you saw that, but it's just one of the many things that, you know, performers have kind of had to adapt to with this whole, you know, global pandemic going on.
Of course, yes. And I have seen you and Chesney jamming away together. You're both fantastic musicians, and I know loads of people know exactly who you are, and you're very exciting. Millions of things you've done in your music career. But if anyone is listening who may have slipped through the Mark Reed net,
I'm sure there's a few.
Well, I don't know. Of course, you're known mostly for your massive career with A1, the band A1. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, that is A1, the band, and not the steak sauce, as it is more commonly known in the States.
or the A1 to the north of England, yeah.
Exactly. And by the way, we were not named after a steak sauce or a road. In fact, I think the inspiration was the Frank Sinatra song, A Number One.
Oh,
that was actually the inspiration behind
A1 means like A1, and good to go type thing. Yeah. So.
Absolutely. And that's the story behind the name. But A1 was where things really broke through for me. I started in that band when I was about 19, and that's when I got my first big break. But I'd actually, when I was much younger, I had sort of big grand plans to actually move into musical theatre. I was actually more drawn to that at a young age, going to, you know, youth theatre and things like that from age 14. But yeah, I took a bit of a detour into the world of pop, and yeah, it was fantastic. We had an absolutely brilliant time. Several number ones, several albums, and a Brit Award, which I'm looking at right now. Need to polish it.
Do you polish it on a regular basis?
I kind of do, because it's one of these the chrome ones, because the silver ones, because the ones they have now are very fancy. They're usually designed by very artsy graphic designers, and they look very different to how they used to. But this is the classic silver statue, which I get out and put in the background when I'm having online chats, just to, you know, look very important.
I love it. Well, it's very important memorabilia, and you kind of glossed over it there. Oh, just a few number ones, blah blah blah. Hang on a minute. You guys were like a massive success in the early 2000s, I think it was. And you had, well, what was your first number one? What was your A1 number one? What was that?
Well, hey, as it happened, we'd had a few sort of top 5 hits already, but our manager, a gentleman by the name of Tim Byrne, who also managed Steps, he said, I think you guys should do a cover version. And we all sat down, had a meeting. And I mean, doing cover versions was a very common thing. So many artists have always done that. Even at the time, a similar time, Madonna did a cover of Don McLean's American Pie.
Well, it's good enough for Madge, good enough for
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. But you should have seen the look of horror on my bandmate Christian's face, because he's from Norway. So when Tim suggested Take On Me, Christian's like, well, you realise if we mess this up, I'm not going to be allowed back into Norway, because it's like our second national anthem. So we made sure that we did a good version of it. I don't think we murdered it. Some might disagree, but no, we did a good version, a very good 2000s version, and it went straight to number one. And we had a great dance routine. All of us had to, you know, we had a fantastic choreographer come over from LA, put us through our paces, and it was just very high energy. And it was one of those situations where everything clicked and fell into place, and we got our first number one.
Brilliant. I remember it really vividly. And of course, Aha did it originally, who are a big Norwegian band, which is why you said about the thing with Christian. But I remember it really vividly. And you know what I love? It's a bit like you know, when you mentioned Steps, when Steps sort of covered a Kylie song, another generation just knows the song, and I guess
that's right.
Another generation just got to know "Take on Me," which is a fabulous number. So that's really cool that you did it.
And you're absolutely right there. They also did Bee Gees' "Tragedy." I think that was probably one of their biggest hits. I'd forgotten that they'd done the Kylie song as well.
They did "Better the Devil You Know." And,
yes,
yes, of course, "Tragedy." Of course,
"Tragedy."
There'll be a whole generation that will say, that's not a Bee Gees number, it's a Steps number. But
exactly, I cringed when I heard some people saying, "Oh, I just saw this band doing your song. This band called Aha just covered your song." And I was like, "Okay, sit down. Let me tell you a story." Of course, their video was just incredible and so groundbreaking.
Oh, that's the thing where it's like the comic book, and he gets dragged into the comic book and all of that. That's right.
Yeah, it still stands the test of time. It's an amazing video, and we tried to go all out with a really great video, and it was very kind of Matrix-esque, and we were up on wires in front of green screen for hours and hours and hours, and it was a good video. It was a very, very proud of it. It's kind of very futuristic. Well, it was it was in the year 2000.
I was going to say, and it's kind of stood the test of time because it still looks quite, like you said, Matrixy and all that kind of thing. So I think that's
it looks fun, but the horrifying thing is that that was probably £180,000 music video. I remember these numbers being thrown around, and you could probably create the same video on an app now.
Probably true. Although I wouldn't fancy putting up on the wires in my front room to try and do it, if I'm totally honest.
No, fair enough.
So you had so much success with all the stuff with the band, but as you alluded to, if I may use the word,
you may.
You did have a lot of musical theatre aspiration. I think I've been rooting around on YouTube, Mark. I've been
I wouldn't.
There's some clips of you in Rent and shows like that, right?
Yeah, a friend of mine who run a youth theatre group called me up and said, "I'm putting on a production of Rent, and I love the songs in Rent, always have." He said, "Would you fancy coming along and being our Roger? It's just like a mate's thing." And at that point, I think I was in full swing with A1, so I certainly didn't have my sort of musical theatre hat on, so to speak. I've been doing pop, but the great thing about Rent is they're just great rock songs, really. They're just fantastic rock songs. So it was a bit of an adjustment for me. But yeah, it was good fun. Really good fun.
And since then, by the way, I saw you in a musical tryout, kind of in concert form at Theatre Royal Drury Lane. Let's just start on a small scale here, why don't we? And you've written a kids musical, which did some touring, and I want to bring it around to a tour that you did. Now, when was this? 2 or 3 years ago? A lovely review called A Spoonful of Sugar. Tell us about that.
Well, it was A Spoonful of Sherman.
Oh, sorry, A Spoonful of Sherman.
That's right. Close. Easy mistake to make.
The clever play on words. I automatically go to my sugar there. A Spoonful of Sherman. Tell us about that.
You're not the only one. A lot of people, I think that did confuse a lot of people, A Spoonful of Sherman. But obviously the reason for that is because it was a review of the songs written by the great Sherman Brothers. And I mean, it was more than just a review. We kind of transported people back to that era and the stage was actually set up like the Sherman Brothers office, where they actually wrote a lot of the songs. And on the stage, we had several items from their history. It was a really magical show, and I was with a fantastic cast, really wonderful people, including a great mutual friend of ours, Mr. Ben Stock, lovely Ben Stock,
who happens to present a show on Box Office Radio. I think you'll find.
Absolutely. Well, definitely worth giving him a mention. But yeah, I love Ben, and we actually had the challenging task of being dueling pianists, dueling piano players. Have to be careful there, and so we were back to back, and there was so much movement. We had to move around the pianos whilst we were playing. We had to swap pianos. We had to play at the same time. I would say it was probably one of the most demanding shows I've ever done, because it just kept you on your toes. Every time you went out there was so much to think about that it was not one of those shows where you just, after a while, you eased into it. It always kept you, on the edge of your seat. And it was a wonderful show.
I think that, there are so many songs we could choose written by the Sherman Brothers, and they're all kind of standards. The amazing thing about the Shermans, Richard and Robert, is that they wrote songs that literally everybody can hum the tune or can whistle the tune, right? And they're just embedded in our in our minds. But you've chosen an absolute classic from Mary Poppins as our first song choice. Let's go into the number now. Tell us what it is, Mark.
It's A Spoonful of Sherman. No, what you said.
A Spoonful of Sugar from Mary Poppins.
Absolutely.
Coming up right now.
In every job that must be done,
Julie Andrews, A Spoonful of Sugar. You literally can't be robbed. Did you have a little pretend robin on your finger, did I notice there, Mark, that was whistling away to you during that number?
What, just here at home? Yeah. I always have one at the ready. You know, whenever any Mary Poppins songs come on. I can tell you a funny story. I hope this doesn't make me sound like horribly unprofessional. But have you ever had to do many shows where you have to do a lot of whistling on stage?
Do you know what? Funnily enough, I haven't.
Right, because it's not always reliable. I've found, because depending on the heat of the room and how difficult it is, you know, sometimes you go to whistle and it just doesn't want to come out. And that was the situation I had with that song, because whilst the lovely Jenna Innes was singing, who's currently in Les Mis, was singing A Spoonful of Sugar, I'd have to do the...
So you were like the whistle.
It's a lovely part, and I absolutely loved doing it.
That's a lot of whistling, though.
I dreaded it a little bit because I almost needed to get a stunt whistler, somebody on the side of the stage to whistle for me, and I'll just
Roger Whittaker. He was the whistler, the famous whistler.
He was.
You could have just brought him on in his bath chair just to do a bit of whistling.
I'm sure he would have done that. He would have joined us on the whole tour, you know, with all the places we went to. I'm sure he would.
I'm sure. Well, it's interesting you say about that, because the reason I made reference to having a little Robin puppet or animatronic on your finger is because, now I have checked, everybody, I'm allowed to say this, Mark, you're slightly a self-declared nerd a bit, aren't you?
Self-declared. I declare myself to be a nerd. Yes, correct.
Because
a big old geek.
Your house is filled with all sorts of characters and I don't know. Do we say dolls, puppets? What are they? Tell us about your kind of.
I don't have a problem with saying I've got lots of models at my house, and people don't usually sort of have a problem with that. They don't question it. Yeah, loads of models at my house. You might be able to see, as we're on camera at the moment, I've got a Statler and Waldorf up there on the wall, Fozzie Bear, and all sorts of things like that. And just because I'm a bit of a mad collector, I should know better by this age. I've pretty much got a house full of the stuff, and we're talking things from the Muppets, things from the movies, lots of nerdy, geeky stuff. And I don't know, maybe some of your listeners now some of them are really, really interested, or some of them have just switched off. People can go either way with this kind of stuff.
I'm sure everyone's totally intrigued. I mean, I know Muppets is a real big thing for you. You absolutely love the Jim Henson stuff and Frank Oz and all of that. But it's also like Star Wars and the sci-fi stuff. You kind of collect a lot of that stuff as well, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's just such escapism, and it's funny, you know, I've actually got 4 full-size Muppets upstairs. They're not in the room with me at the moment, unfortunately. But yeah, and particularly Fozzie Bear. Fozzie Bear is absolutely amazing. He's my favourite. And unfortunately, the company went out of business that made these before they made Miss Piggy. So I don't have Miss Piggy, unfortunately.
What a shame.
I really am a nerd, aren't I?
You'd probably be trying to take over if you did have her in the mix there.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been known to do a few Muppet impressions as well. I apologise for that.
Well,
Comedy Frog here.
It's very good, and this brings me on very nicely to. I know that you do a lot of voiceover work, and you do quite a bit of sound. In fact, when last time you came over here and I saw you, we went over to see some friends at Nickelodeon, didn't we? And I know you're like the cartoon voices and all that. Tell us a bit about that work, because you do quite a lot in that area, right?
Oh, that was amazing, going to visit the main Nickelodeon studios with you. That was really fantastic. I do a lot of impressions, but what I'm trying to do, what I'm hoping to get into, is actually creating a new voice and doing a voice in animation. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on as well. At the moment, I just do a lot of VO for kids TV, adverts and commercials, things like that. But you were talking about the collectibles. I have got an amazing animatronic Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors, which, as far as I'm aware, I think it's possibly a screen used prop. If not, I believe it may have been on the set.
Wow.
So that's probably my rarest and sort of my favourite collectible of all the things that I've got.
You don't water it, do you?
No.
Don't overfeed it, whatever you do.
No, absolutely not. No, because all the wiring would just,
Apart from everything else, the wiring, yes, of course.
It's incredible. It's so amazing, and that is because Little Shop of Horrors, obviously the connection to Jim Henson as well. That's my favourite musical of all time.
And does that bring us rather nicely to your next song choice, Mr. Reed?
Oh, I think it might.
I think it
might. Sounded like a pre, like a link there. Sounds like a whole link.
If anyone thinks this is rehearsed, they would be very foolish. So Little Shop of Horrors, I know it is one of your favourites. It's actually quite a favourite of mine. And I have, over the last sort of few weeks, played quite a few numbers from Little Shop. But we're going to hear the title song now, right, from the movie. So, actually, you'll know this because you know everything. The movie, although it was American production, it was shot in the UK, right? I think.
Yes, that's right. Yes, it was in 1985. Came out in '86. Pinewood Studios, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Although there's a lot of American stars in it, there are a lot of British actors in it as well, right?
Yes, I mean, this film just absolutely mesmerised me as a kid, and it's one of those films that I can watch again and again and again, over again. It was directed by Frank Oz, who was one of the main Muppet performers, the voice of Miss Piggy and Fozzie. And what a fantastic film! What an incredible cast! And a little bit of inside information. They actually did this is quite common in films, but they actually did a whole reshoot where they completely reshot the ending, because the ending of the film originally ended with, it's a bit dark really, but quite similar to the actual stage version. It ended with Seymour feeding Audrey to the plant, then feeding himself to the plant, and the plant's taking over the world. So that's how the original film ended. But in test screenings, it got awful reviews. Everybody hated the ending because they loved the characters so much. So they actually had to do reshoots, get a few of the cast back to refilm that ending. So we get the ending, the happy ending, as opposed to the stage ending.
There you go. I didn't know that. I'm sure Rick Moranis and Ellen Greene were very pleased about that, because it kind of gave them, they rode off into the sunset together, which is...
well, you can actually see the cuts where it looks quite noticeably different when she's come back. Her wig is slightly different, and where they've actually, for continuity, you can, if you really know, and you're a bit of a nerd like me, you can actually see the bits where they've reshot it.
Well, the next time we all see the movie, we'll definitely look out for those. But Mark, introduce the number. It's the title song from
Little Shop of Horrors.
I am delighted to say that Mark Reed has been hanging on the line. We're not literally hanging on the line, but he's still here to talk to us. And actually, what is that you've got there in your hand? A1 fans, don't get hot under the collar. What is that you're showing me there?
I've decided to bring out my Audrey 2 from the collection to show you, because I know we both...
Even more carry-on film than ever. But this is amazing because we are on camera. And the Audrey 2 that you were talking about, which of course, for those who aren't aware, is the plant that grows bigger and bigger and bigger in Little Shop of Horrors. This
is it in the first scene. This would have been the second scene that Audrey appears in, just before he sings "Grow for Me," because obviously at that point it outgrows this Maxwell House coffee tin, which it's currently in. So we'll have to put up some snaps so people listening can see what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That'll be great. It really is fascinating.
Let's do that.
Many moons ago, when I did a tour of Little Shop of Horrors and played Seymour, I don't think ours was anywhere near as high tech. I think I had my hand up the back of it and I was rating it myself. But
amazing. So did you had several different puppets throughout the show?
There were about 4, I think. There was one which I sort of held in my hand and had a little kind of thing you could work from behind, and its head just moved. Then there was the one on the desk, which I had to sort of lean on the desk and put my hand up the back of it. And then they got bigger and there were people inside them. And then, of course, the last one was about 4 people controlling it. And we all, as you said, we all had to dive in and get eaten again. Anyway, this is not about me.
Incredible. No, that's actually, that would have been my dream role once upon a time. I would have absolutely loved to have played Seymour. I'm probably a little too old now, so maybe, but I've still got my eye on Dentist if it ever comes around again. But if I wait too much longer, it'll be Mushnik. So that's
well, as long as you don't end up inside the plant, that's the main.
I don't mind.
As the operator, I meant, not being eaten by the plant.
Oh, anyway, I'd love to do that. Anyway,
we talked earlier about you appearing in Spoonful of Sherman. I did actually see Richard Sherman play at the El Capitan a few years ago, which I mentioned on the previous show. It was incredible. And for anyone who isn't aware, Mark is the most incredible pianist. You are a wonderful piano player. And of course, you write songs as well. And in recent times, you've been, like you said, kind of working your way through pandemic like everybody else. But I think that was quite a creative period for you, right? Because you've written some good songs during that time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for a lot of creatives, when you find yourself, locked, caged up at home, it's actually a good time to get creative. I mean, a lot of people use things like this as therapy and write about it. I initially wrote a song very specifically about the lockdown, a song called Where Were You? And then as the lockdown began to lift, I wrote a song called Smile Again, which for me was focusing a little bit more on, say like mental health and actually just, I always try to make songs that lift people's moods and cheer people up. I'm not particularly political, so I try to do really uplifting songs. And the last one I wrote was a song called Stop the Show, which I hadn't planned on releasing during lockdown or during this period. I'd started writing it before, and then when I kind of saw what was happening with all the theatres being closed, and it's absolutely heartbreaking when you see what so many people are going through at the moment, and not just people on stage, but people behind the scenes. And obviously there's danger of many of our, beloved theatres actually closing their doors, which is just heartbreaking. So I felt like I wanted to release the song during this time. But the whole theme of the song is just, similar to The Show Must Go On. It's You Can't Stop the Show. So the song's called Stop the Show. I didn't want to call it You Can't Stop the Show because I thought people might draw comparisons to You Can't Stop the Beat. A rather well-known song. So I went with
a musical theatre song, yes.
Absolutely. So I went with Stop the Show, but the lyrics are, the curtain ain't coming down. Let everyone know that we're back in town. So it's just a celebration of getting back on stage and getting back out there. And the reaction's been great. People are loving it. And it's doing what I set out to do, is cheering people up. And that's what music's all about. I remember when I was younger, and my dad used to play me songs like Mr. Blue Sky, and songs that the second you hear them, your mood is just changed and it just cheers you up so much. And that's what I tried to do with this song. It's also rather Greatest Showman. I'm not going to lie. I can't really bury the lead there. It's very, very Greatest Showman-esque.
You were influenced in a good way by Greatest Showman. It's an absolutely fantastic track, and you're a good mate, and you're such an upbeat kind of guy anyway. And I think that really does shine through in this number, and it brings a lot of positivity around what's been a very difficult time, as you say. And one of the things that I really love about this is the video and the clips to go with it. But how did you just happen to have a top hat and tails in your wardrobe? How did you film?
Oh, of course, don't you? Doesn't everyone?
Well, along with the animatronic Robin, I've got all that. Yeah,
exactly. Well, you know how they talk about learning new skills during the lockdown. I actually learned the skill of how to make a music video. It's something I'd never done before. And I thought, how hard can it be? Just buy a green screen, stand in front of it and sing your song, then put in the background. How wrong was I? It took me a month of many, many, many hours. Blood, sweat and tears went into making that video. I made it myself from scratch. And so it's a very kind of do-it-yourself, homemade music video. But yeah, I spent a lot of time on it, and I'm quite proud of how it's turned out.
It looks really good. I mean, It's just behind the Take On Me video for me, I think. As far as
Absolutely, and I wanted to make it fun as well. I had thought about actually filming it at a theatre, a local theatre close to me, called the New Theatre Royal in Portsmouth. And but it actually just turned out that it would be easier to do it from home, easier, safer, and but yeah, it was a real learning curve, because filming with green screen can be very tricky, because if you go outside of the green screen, then all of a sudden the top of your head's cut off. And I learnt the hard way with things like that. So I found if you watch the video, which is on YouTube, you'll see that every now and again there's like a smoke bomb, and I changed the aspect ratio so it's a more wide screen, so I can hide all the mistakes that I made when making the video.
Good bit of trickery. So we're going to play the song in a moment. Mark, it's been lovely as ever to talk to you, and I'm so pleased that you've come on the show. You mentioned the song is on YouTube. You've got, I know, hopefully as everything opens up, you'll have your own gigs, you'll have A1 gigs. Where can people check out to find that stuff? Is that kind of available online somewhere?
Yeah, well, you can find me on all the socials, on Spotify, Mark Reed, READ, and I always have to say that. I don't know why. It's just because it's not the first one that people come to. But A1 are actually going out on tour later this year. We've got one tour called the Boys Are Back tour with other boy bands, and then we've got our own tour called the A Game in October. So very much looking forward to that. And then I'll be sticking on the tights and climbing up a beanstalk in December. That gives a little clue as to what I'll be doing then. Looking forward to that. But I'm looking forward to the year ahead. As things are getting back to normal, I just can't wait to get back out on stage, and the world's opening up again, and it's a great, exciting time. So
great. And it sounds like you really aren't going to stop the show, but I always like to have the guest introduce the number. So this is very exciting, because this is obviously sung and written and produced by Mark. Mark, lovely to see you. Time to say goodbye. But just before we go, please introduce the song.
Thanks, Andrew. It's been great chatting with you. And here it is. It's called Stop the Show.
You can't stop the show. We can't stop the show. Ladies and gentlemen, can I have a moment of your time? Make no mistake about it, you won't want to miss a single line.